What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. We ended up getting some news released to us about the lunar event happening in Pokemon Go, and one of the highlights related to that event is Darmanitan's pre-evolution officially being available in 7-kilometer eggs. So of course a lot of people are going to have questions about Darmanitan. It's actually going to be a very in-depth Pokemon. There is a lot of complication with this Pokemon involving different forms, as well as the Galarian side of all of this as well. So what we're going to do today is of course answer the core questions like, is this Pokemon worth powering up? How would you actually use it in Pokemon Go? And then finally, would you unlock a secondary charge move for it? As well as just introducing the different forms and kind of talking about some of the situations related to them, and maybe, who knows, speculate on how Pokemon Go is going to, of course, introduce that. But anyways, hopefully you do enjoy this episode. If you do, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Darmanitan, with a max AP of 3,105, Darmanitan is a pure fire type Pokemon. So very excited to get into today's episode. We are of course going to be looking at the Darmanitan standard form from the fire perspective. So let's go ahead and dive in a little bit deeper on this Pokemon. So the first thing that we are going to do is of course take a look at the stats. Now there are going to be a couple of things to really point out that are honestly great for Darmanitan. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The attack stat is going to be a huge benefit for this Pokemon. Having an attack stat of 263 gives it its best ranking at 32nd. Its worst stat is going to be that defense stat. I mean, that is like really bad, ranked out at 484th in Pokemon Go, so that is not good at all. But it has a very good attack stat, and then of course a very good stamina stat. Now I want to talk a little bit about why that attack stat is so important. Some of the better Pokemon from the fire typing, such as Moltres for example, is in the low 250s, and then even something like a Heatran as well, low 250s. So for Darmanitan to be at 263, that is a major improvement for this Pokemon. It has the potential to make it as like a #1 fire type attacker, maybe competing with something like a Chandelure based off of the stats. But as we know, we of course need to dive in a little bit deeper on this Pokemon and take a look at the actual moveset. So let's go ahead and cover that. So first things first, as far as like an ideal moveset is concerned, we do have Fire Fang, and then we also have Overheat, and to be honest, that's really all you need in this scenario. Now this is of course going to be like the preloaded movesets. If something changes, I will update it, so make sure to check out that comment section below. Check out the pinned comment just in case something changed, but this is what is currently preloaded into the game. Fire Fang is a solid move, and Overheat is one of the better fire type moves that you want to have, besides something like Blast Burn. So we are not seeing any red flags for Darmanitan. That is really going to be the major takeaway in this case. So let's go ahead and move on to an actual raid scenario. And I figured that versus a Scizor would be like the best thing that we would want to end up doing, because it is going to be double weak to the fire type Pokemon. So let's go ahead and take a look. We actually see Darmanitan taking over as the #1 fire type attacker with Fire Fang and Overheat. And then of course when you take a look at some of its competitors such as Chandelure and then finally Moltres, you end up seeing that Chandelure and Darmanitan actually have the same number of feints. Of course something like a Moltres is going to have less feints, but that's partly going to be because of the typing as well. But regardless of that, what we end up seeing is that Darmanitan has the potential to have a major impact on the game, and with it being a non-legendary Pokemon, I honestly think that that is going to be a very good situation for Darmanitan. The only downside to it, at least from my point of view at this point in time, is going to be related to the fact that you are going to have to get it from eggs, which means it is going to be locked at level 20. So that is going to be a very similar situation to Chandelure as well, being egg locked, meaning you're not going to be able to get this in the wild, at least for now. Who knows, that may end up changing at some point in time. But that means that you are going to have to give an extra investment. So for the most part with these top three, I would argue that it kind of puts them on more of a level playing field as far as the cost is associated, but we can talk about that all day. I figured we might as well go ahead and talk a little bit more about Darmanitan and then of course its alternative options that it has. So up first, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the Galarian form for Darmanitan. Instead, this option is going to be Ice. Now, it's going to have the exact same stats as what we've been talking about for the standard form, but then there's also something referred to as the Zen Mode for Darmanitan. And in this case, for the Galarian form, it is going to be Ice and Fire. So we are going to have to ask ourselves the question, how exactly are these Pokemon going to be implemented? So technically, if you think about it, with Darmanitan being introduced into the game, that means at any point in time, the Galarian form could officially come out. We have already seen a Weezing come out from that Galarian form, for example. So I would imagine that the Galarian form of Darmanitan will end up coming out at some point in time, maybe going to be raid exclusive. It seems like Niantic is going that route, so that's exactly what's going to be happening. So I mentioned that Zen mode a little bit, so let's go ahead and talk about that. So Darmanitan does have a secondary like Zen mode. How exactly will Niantic introduce this? I'm not 100% sure on that. But what we do know is that this Pokemon is going to actually have different set of stats. Now, although the CP ends up going up for this Pokemon, unfortunately, the attack stat does drop. That's very important to note. So as far as from the raid side, the Zen mode is not going to be the better option, but who knows? In PvP, it could actually end up doing a little bit better, which we are going to, of course, address that as well. But another kind of change to it is that it is going to have a different typing where it is going to be Fire and Psychic. But like I said, it is speculation as far as how this Pokemon is going to be introduced. But of course, I would love to pass the question off to you. How do you think that the Zen mode would be introduced into the game? And then of course, what about those Galarian forms? So now that we have talked about that, we are going to go ahead and finish up on some PvP as well as just the overall discussion for how good Darmanitan is. So for Darmanitan, as far as PvP and Team Rocket battles are concerned, this Pokemon really doesn't perform that well, so I decided to kind of like skip it in this episode. But in all reality, I think it does come down to that defense stat just being so low. But there is some good news related to this though, and that is that the Zen mode ends up having a different set of stats. Who knows, we may end up seeing a different moveset as well for that Zen mode. I honestly think that that's going to be the better option from the PvP side. So for all of you PvP players out there, don't be too disappointed in Darmanitan. There is definitely some future benefit on the horizon with that Zen mode whenever and however it gets introduced into Pokemon Go. So of course we have to ask ourselves the question, is Darmanitan going to be worth powering up? From the raid side, absolutely. This Pokemon is crushing it with that high attack stat. That is massive for this Pokemon. Unlocking a secondary charge move, I mean, if you're into PvP, sure. But like I said before, I would just kind of wait till that Zen mode to end up coming out. And then of course we've got that Galarian form where it ends up focusing on Ice instead. That's going to be amazing. I'm so excited to see how the Pokemon ends up performing from the Ice type. Darmanitan could end up being a very good option for this Pokemon, like being a non-legendary. It's accessible. The only investment that you are going to have to make is of course powering it up from level 20, with it being at least egg locked at this point in time. So it is a considerable investment, but at least with it being number one, you know that you are going to be paying for what you get with the candy as well as the Stardust as well. So definitely kind of keep that in mind. I would love to know what you think about Darmanitan in the comment section below. Do you plan on using it? Do you want to use it from the raid side, PvP? Are you excited about the Galarians? Anything and everything, let me know in the comment section below, and I will see you next time. If you want to develop a deeper connection, I would highly recommend you to check out Patreon. We've got a lot of really cool things going on over there. Check out all of these supporters that we have. We are almost up to 100. We are also posting some special content, some behind the scenes work. And if that is the type of thing that interests you, I would highly recommend you to check it out.